Hola amigos, welcome back to the coffee show with Kirk Pearson. I'm your host, Kirk Pearson, joined by an old friend, a legend in the coffee industry, Carlos Escobar. Welcome to the coffee show.
Thank you very much, Kirk, for the invite. This is awesome to be here.
This has been, I'm so glad that this has finally happened for us because I've wanted to interview you for a long time.
Thank you.
And you were living in Australia, moved back to Colombia 2 years ago now, sort of thing?
Exactly 2 years ago.
Exactly.
In May.
May. Yeah, exactly 2 years ago. Miss it dearly. Everyone in Australia does. Well, let's start with that. How's the move been?
Man, the movement has been awesome. It was what I needed. I love Australia. It's the country that I will always have in my heart. I am Australian, right? I have a passport and I do feel Australian. But I think for the time in my life that I was going through by that time, getting back to Colombia, it's what I was needing, and definitely it was a good move. Of course, like every change in life, it came with very hard parts to it, but overall, loving the change, loving the new beginning, loving kind of starting from ground zero again. And yeah, man, like Colombia is a beautiful country. I feel so reconnected with my culture, with who I am again. And I think that's what I was needing. I was a little bit losing myself and I'm back.
Well, this is something, I hope you don't mind me sharing a little bit of this, but I remember there was a clear moment a few years ago where you were living in Sydney and I was living on the Central Coast. So it's about an hour away sort of thing. And you came and visited me and you were explaining to me that you were going through some hardship. So going through a real tough period in your life.
Yeah.
And, you're wanting to talk to a friend and, you're at that stage you hadn't decided you were going to go back, but you had almost made your decision. And
so, yeah, I think, let's call it how it is. I think I have never said this like in front of a camera or anything, but look, reality is I got burned out. Like, you know what? I haven't been able to find the translation of burning out in Spanish. Because a lot of people ask that, like, why did you come back? Like, Australia seems to be amazing and why are you back? And indeed, Australia is amazing. I love the country. I love Sydney. But I'm burnt out, man. Like, I think as I was saying, I was losing myself a little bit. And yeah, look, the outcome of that was me leaving the country, the city, everything I had built in 12 years.
so I think you were most known in Australia for you spent some time as the national sales manager for Campos and then had the same role at Toby's Estate for a few years. And then now you've moved back to Colombia. You started your own coffee brand called Diferente. Is that how I say it?
Correct.
Diferente. What's it been like doing that? And if I'm correct, you serve almost exclusively Colombian coffee?
Yep. So that's right. Like I work for Campos and Toby's Estate, among other brands, but those two are the latest ones. And moved back with the vision to start my own. And yeah, it's called Diferente. Diferente is pretty much my vision of getting back to Colombia and start roasting and living the best Colombian coffees for Colombians. I know that sounds common sense, but it's not. So surprisingly, what is normally consumed in Colombia is pretty much the lowest quality of the spectrum of the Colombian coffee. So all the defects, beans that are defective and in all ways, that is what is kept for the local consumption. And all the good stuff is exported. So, of course, coming from Australia, like I was used to drinking amazing Colombian coffees, and I go back to Colombia and it's hard. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's hard to find great coffee. or compared to Australia, where in the way I see it, some people might disagree, but it's hard to find a bad coffee in Australia, man. Like you go in Australia and out of 10 coffee shops, 9 serve specialty coffee. I always put up even sometimes like a comparison, like even McDonald's coffee in Australia has a big part of a specialty coffee. It's that level, like the convenience stores coffees in Australia serve a specialty grade coffee. Man, in Colombia, it's far from that reality. You know, like we produce some of the best coffees in the world, and what the local consumption is just really bad.
I had that similar experience in Bolivia when I went there. So a lot of there was one cafe that I found that served takesi,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, that was awesome. But you know, a lot of these countries don't get to drink their domestically
correct.
grown product. I think in Kenya as well, like 96% of the coffee is exported. And they don't get to enjoy.
You know, in Colombia, what it is? 98.
Oh,
Like, man, how crazy is that number, right? So, getting back to a question, that's the vision of Diferente. So, Diferente not only living specialty grade coffee, but living the best micro lots, the competition lots, the experimental lots, pretty much the Colombian coffees that the whole world talks about. And Colombians are like, but what is that? Why people talk that much about those farms, about those coffees, about those varieties? Now giving that to Latin America, to local consumption to start enjoying.
so living in Colombia, are you able to, when you're sourcing coffee, are you able to literally travel to different locations and go find different lots that you wouldn't otherwise be able to find? Like,
Absolutely. So comes without saying that they building a truthful relationship with a farmer, it just opens the door for experiments and yeah, the possibilities that you normally don't have just buying what is available out there. So being in Colombia, having the opportunity to go stay with the producers, not just go 1 day, 2 days, not just, you know, like being in contact, communication, like like being in touch with them pretty much all the time by phone, by that, but also being able to go and visit them has given me the opportunity to say like, hey, what if we try this? What if we try that? What else you have? Because you know what? Like, I think the producers, and rightly so, they are very guided by the market, by the markets, right? Like by Asian market, all the Arab countries market, and yeah, maybe Europe and America and Australia. However, the big spenders are the ones that, of course, guide the market for producers, okay? Like in any other industry, right? Like if you do a product and some countries are buying your most expensive products, you start tailoring everything for them. Same things happen in coffee. What does that mean? Like, if there's a trend now in the market that the big spenders are starting to like these processes, these methods, man, Colombian producers start like, oh, that's what they want. So they might be doing something different, but they say that's not what people want. What they want is something around that. So they start not saying they change, but they start doing pretty much the vast majority of their lots, their best coffees for their best customers, like in any other industry everyone would do. But then me being there in Colombia, very close to them, I have had the chance to say, hey, how about we do something a little bit different to that? I know that you will easily sell that, but how about we do this? And of course, sometimes I, like commit to, hey, let's do it, we buy it. But in other times, it's like, hey, let's create other lots, other things that maybe I have the opportunity to have lived in other countries. So I say like, hey, I do think this sort of profiles or that will do very well in other markets. Try this. And I do it not only for the intention of me getting a really good coffee. Comes without saying. I'm not saying here, I'm so good, such a good person. No, I'm not saying that. Of course, I want to find a good coffee for me, but I also do it like I think that will open markets for you, get you more visibility, and you will get commercial benefit out of this.
It seems like such a fun way to be able to go about it. To go literally find, like obviously hard work and takes time, but it seems like such a fun way to go about it. And I want to segue this with the coffee selection you've made for the Brewers Cup here. So you're competing in the World Brewers Cup right now as the representative from Colombia, and you've chosen a coffee that I would not have suspected anyone here to choose, which is a Maracatura.
That is correct.
That's got a sort of anaerobic fermentation applied to it.
100%.
So Maracatura being a hybrid variety of Maracojipe and then Catura. So the beans are enormous. But explain to me how this came about.
Okay, look, I think the responsibility of choosing one coffee only for words is massive, right? And also something that represents Colombia. That is another thing that I wanted. Comes without saying that coming to words, you know that you're going to be competing with the best coffees in the world. Of course, Colombia has some of them, but you also know that Panama and some African countries produce amazing coffees too. So when you know that I was, of course, totally sure that I was going to use only Colombian coffees, but when you know that the vast majority of competitors can blend with other countries or use Panama, I had to take that into account in part of my strategy and be like, okay, so if the profiles at Word will go towards this sort of tasting profile, I do have two options. I go and have something like that is better than that, or I go in a different direction. And that is a strategy, right? It might be the right one. It might be the wrong one. And hey, at this time, on the 16th of May, we still don't know if that was the right choice, right? So, so I hope I made the right decision on going a little bit out of the trend.
But you're no stranger to this level of competition as well. So you've been at the Worlds before. So I'd like to think your guide for coffee selection is pretty good.
Look, yes, I want to believe that too. However, I'm also a little bit on the risk-taking approach. I think that kind of defines me as a person, or my personality is more of a risk taker than playing it safe all the time. That sometimes works in my favor, sometimes it doesn't. But I think something like for everyone that knows me, like sometimes I make mistakes, but I'm still authentic or true to myself. And the decision that I made, I took it in line with who I am. Like, man, like, let's go for the other one. Let's go like, but what if? Yeah, and what if it fucking works?
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Correct.
I want to unpack the routine a little bit more, because going back again to sort of the situation that sort of led you to leaving Australia and what we just spoke about now, your routine was the best performance I think I've seen in a Brewers Cup ever. And
thank you.
It was just, look, let's be real. There was some vintage Carlos Escobar in there, the hand movements, the speech. But I think the concept just got me, because you're talking about, saying that my father's a former coffee producer. And I think the line was, that's something that shouldn't exist in the coffee industry, but does. And then you're applying it to yourself and how you left coffee, and the keywords being, I'm back. And when I heard you say that, it was just awesome. But talk us through what you were doing, because as it stands right now, it is the 16th of May. The announcements for the finals are later on today. Yeah. You very well make it to the finals.
I hope so. Look, thank you for that. Thanks for the kind words. It's a routine that is very, again, like I had so much time to prepare for this, and I had multiple options through the year And something that I'm really happy with, or like at least it's a good feeling right now, is that it's a routine that is very me. You just said it's very vintage Carlos Escobar. Man, that routine is me. It's very authentic. It's who I am. It's not about me. No, that's also not my style. But it is something I feel very related to. So again, the presentation was about the whole theme is how can we motivate the next generation in coffee? Because everyone around the world for the last months have been talking about coffee prices. And of course, we should be talking about coffee prices. But if we go back to Colombia, man, the real challenge I think we as a producing nation have is the generational transition. That is the real challenge. Why is that? The average age of a Colombian coffee producer, you know what that is? I want you to tell me, guess.
45.
58.
58?
Average age of a coffee producer in Colombia, man. So that means like we have a big issue, a generational transition issue. And well, that hits me really hard because it's very personal. Well, my dad was a coffee farmer and he left coffee. Why he left coffee? Because stopped being profitable, because we kind of lost it all. We, like without getting into too much personal information, we lost it all through coffee. Like my family, my dad had all the coffee booming years, all the success of the Colombian coffee getting into really good and famous around the world. And then the whole deep down of coffee prices, the futures, the whole problems with the futures, and we lost it all through coffee. And so, in my case, I wanted to do anything but coffee. That is actually a reason I went to Australia. Let's just start from there. Like I went to Australia because I went to university. I study industrial engineering. I'm an engineer, by the way. I'm not sure if you knew that.
Didn't know that.
Okay, I'm an engineer. And why is that? Because my dad was also with the mind of go to university, choose anything you want, but anything but coffee. I don't want you to do what I do, to need to stay in the farm doing what we do, because this is not working. So go be an engineer, go work in a company. So what I'm telling you is the situation of thousands of Colombian families and I would say in other origin countries. But let's talk Colombia, which is what I know, right? And then I grow up with that mentality of anything but coffee, coffee's hard, coffee, everyone is losing money, wow, coffee is so volatile that some years you do good, 3 years you lose money. And then I go to Australia, have the opportunity, I'm very fortunate, right? I had the chance to go to Australia, and then I find that everyone loves coffee, the coffee industry. By the time I was there, and when I went there, was booming. Right now, maybe the situation is different, but when I went there, man, coffee, specialty coffee was an amazing industry. The salaries were in line with other industries. Now other industries went extremely high, but when I went there, a barista was earning what a normal professional was earning in a company. To me, that was like, wow, like, what is this? Like,
yeah, well, the wages are high and like
correct. Like right now, Australians have it that good. With all due respect, that they actually now say like, baristas don't earn enough and stuff like that. But 12, 13, 14 years ago when I went to Australia, man, like that salary was extremely high compared with what other countries pay for any coffee related
any job compared to any other country really in Australia is quite high. And I think it really contrasts with coming to a country like Indonesia where the
Correct.
salary is quite low.
But let's do not compare about how much you get, because then the standard of living is also way more expensive in Australia. Let's compare the gap between what a coffee professional earn and a marketing professional and a sales professional and you call it, right? Let's don't call it a doctor, a lawyer, no, but a marketing professional and a coffee professional. That gap in Australia is this big.
Yeah,
man.
yep.
That gap in Colombia is this big.
Yeah, okay.
So that to me was the real eye-opening situation when I was like, wait a second, that coffee is not as bad as I think.
Yep.
I grew up thinking, do anything, because in coffee it's only losses. And now you go there and it's like, man, people in coffee actually are living very good. Wait a second, what's happening here? And then everyone talking Colombian, coffee. And I was like, yes. And for the very first time, I saw that coffee and being a coffee farmer was something like kind of like to be proud of. And I told you, like I was coming from a culture of coffee farmer. Oh man, losing money, and it was not a cool thing. It's like it was something that people were feeling sad about you. Like people that feel pity about you. Like, oh, coffee farmer. Oh, very hard.
Do you think you have any ambition to be a coffee farmer yourself one day?
Absolutely. I would say now that I'm back, would love to. It's been very hard to get my dad again to love and believe in coffee again, but he calls what I do my art. I love my art. And he says like, you have an art. And I think he's realizing that what I realized 14 years ago, which was there's so much more to coffee than producing, or that actually being a coffee producer is cool. And some people are doing very well. The thing is that out of the 500,000 producing families in Colombia, very few are in that position. Now, I want to show my dad that, well, I know we could be within that percentage. But my vision now is I don't want my dad, to be in that 1%. I want to grow that pie. I want more coffee farmers to see this as, hey, we can do a living.
Well, that's almost like an existential issue for coffee in general, because Colombia is the third biggest coffee producer in the world. So if that average age were to keep creeping up higher, and then you sort of reach a wave of retirement sort of thing, it would cause a disastrous impact on 100%. The coffee industry and 100%. Coffee prices.
Correct.
Let's link this back to your competition routine now. So obviously, I think a big part of what you're doing is you want to inspire coffee producers in Colombia and do it through the Brewers Cup. Winning with a Colombian coffee would just be a fantastic way to do it.
A dream.
Pardon me. What would it mean to you and to Colombians for you to win on this message?
Oh, man. I get a bit emotional when I think about it. It will feel a lot because it's like a routine all about younger generations and producers, where to me is like where my focus is right now. And it would mean that message to producers. I think is now this goes beyond Colombian producers. This is more coffee producers in general, to show younger generations that, hey, there's a future in this industry. There's a future if we do things differently. We cannot keep just doing the same that other generations have done amazingly, bringing us to here. But if we really want to change this and make coffee producing how can I say it? Something
appealing?
Not only appealing, man, because it's a very cool thing right now, but worth it. Something that you can have a really good life with. And when I say good life, I'm not only talking about the money and that, but it is important, man. It is important. Like when you are a Colombian kid and you see the other kids because their father is a marketing professional, going to on holidays, doing this, and when your family is the coffee producer and you cannot do it, of course you aspired for the other things. That's the word, something to aspire for.
Well, aspiration is probably a key, and I kind of feel like one good thing to come out of the coffee prices being having spiked this year is maybe there is interest that comes out of it.
100%.
Maybe people do see a future, because part of me thinks that it's probably not going to go down much lower than it is right now, and I kind of hope it doesn't, because if we as a customer become adapted to paying that price, and it looks after producers and they start getting paid a lot more, kind of everyone starts winning. But I would sort of explain to people right now that just because coffee prices are what they are right now doesn't mean that people are really making bank in Colombia either, because you're producing a whole lot less cherries because of the climate issues.
That is correct. Look, the good prices actually come in a really good time for Colombia, but this is a very selfish view, right? But those prices are in line with pretty much the most productive years in Colombian history. Like Colombia is just produced, if I'm not wrong, like 20% more than last year, and it hits with the massive price increase, which is an amazing thing for the country. But again, like I know this is gonna lift a lot of eyebrows and create there a little bit of you shouldn't have that and stuff.
Come on, let's go.
However, man, those high prices is just because they are high compared to where they were.
Yeah.
But finally, they're where they should have been ages ago, man. Like so, literally, the world got used to. Let's talk about Colombia, because this does not apply to every single origin, but producing coffee in Colombia was under the C price. The cost of producing a pound of green bean in Colombia was under the C price for a pound of coffee. And no one was screaming about it. Everyone was, it's the C price, it's the C price. That's how it works. That's how it works. It's the C price. It's been like that forever. And that got so normalized, it's like, that's how it works. So finally, the C price is a little bit over the cost of production, how it's normal in any other industry. It's just like, so that's sustainable. So the producers can live. But now they're so much higher to that price some months ago. So everyone is like screaming about it. But man, like they are where they should have been ages ago.
A lot of people have such a romantic sort of view of Colombian coffee as well. Like you think of the top 10 or 20 farms in the world are like half of them could very well be Colombian. Your La Palma El Toucans, Cerro Azul,
you have the
Finca
big
El
names,
Paraíso, Campo Hermoso, Micava, like could go on. But yeah, Colombia is really in the highest echelon of coffee producers. So it would be a terrible shame if,
Absolutely. Like, again, like we need to start working on that generational transition. We need to get, yes, we have those big names like that, but those big names, those numbers are a fraction, a not significant fraction of the Colombian producers. So in order to keep that Colombian coffee being there, we need new big names. We need more of those. We need to get new farms, new producers. We need the families of those big names to take on and keep going with those legacies. And I think we are working on that. I think I'm not saying, it's not like that. No. We are working on that right now. And I hope my presentation and more people around the world keep sharing this message and keep sending that to other people to for more producers to start taking it on.
Why is it that Colombian processors or Colombian farmers are so much more experimental on average than your average coffee producing country? Because I think Colombia has very rightly earned itself a reputation for
100%.
willing to go places with coffee processing that no one else will.
I think there is a main reason for that. It's a personal opinion. I do think it's because we have coffee all year round. And so when you do experiments, it's a risk. You need to take the risk to... It might work, it might not. So when you have your whole harvest at once and you know that whatever lot that does not work, you won't sell, and you are counting on that income, well, it's very risky to experiment many things. And even if it works, then by the time you get a result in a very small lot, then the rest of the harvest is pretty much processed in other ways. Then you kind of like get the lesson and say, next harvest, I will try that. In Colombia, man, pretty much weekly, you can try an experiment. A very small one. Doesn't work. Okay, you waste that kind of coffee. I'm not saying that is not good. But you have the chance to keep experimenting until it works. And then when it works, you just do it with the right thing.
And why is it that Colombians, like, is it the weather or something that sort of allows you to harvest all year round?
I think it's because we are in the equator, so definitely it's for the climate, the microclimates that we have, and we have different regions in Colombia, and every region has two harvests. One that is the main one, the other one is a little bit less, but the beautiful thing of Colombia is like that is divided pretty much by kind of half. These regions have their main harvest in this part in the first semester, and then the other region has the mitaca, we call it, which is like half season in that semester, and in the other part of the year, the other region produces the best coffee in the biggest quantity, and the other one. Right. So Colombia, as an origin, has fresh coffee, all year round. Any month you go to Colombia, you will find coffee. You might need to find it in another region, but in the country, all year round. So talking about experiments and that, man, you can do that weekly. Instead, other countries have 1 month a year to do all the experiments.
I love it. When I want to talk a bit about your brew for the Brewers Cup this time around. You've got a pretty interesting recipe where it's very simple as well.
Yep.
So it's 14 grams in, 200 grams total of water, just 2 100-gram pours.
I've always been like that. I've always been on the simple side of things. I do respect the competitors that make very technical things, big respect and admiration to them. But again, being truthful to who I am in that, I'm more of a making things simple and making things that are easy to replicate as well. I really want people to be able to do what we do at the world stage at home. And sometimes there are extremely complex things that will never translate into a cafe or into a home user. And how beautiful would be that people can start drinking or having a very similar experience to what people have at work, right? So, yeah, quite simple, but the key thing of my technique this year was something that I call the selective flow method. And it's pretty much removing the first part of the extraction and the end as well. So pretty much another way of calling it is like cutting the head, cutting the tail. And that is pretty much in the theory of the extraction. We're cutting pretty much the saltiest part of the extraction and the highest part of the bitterness, right? And so what you have in between is pretty much something with more, you increase the perception of sweetness. Of course, you're going to lose some body and stuff like that, but, well, you compensate that with other variables. Water, for example.
Water is something that I think you have told me more than anyone else about, because I think you will remember this time when I came to see you in Sydney and you asked me to bring you all the coffees, like a sample of each of the coffees that I had at the time. And I had some really exquisite coffees from Longboard, from Takesi, from Finca Hartman, everything. And I brewed them and I was really, really happy with what I made. But then you brewed them all for me again. And I think you'll remember my eyes fell out of my head when I was drinking it. I was like, Carlos, what the hell have you done? And you taught me the importance of that mineral content in your water is just so important for coffee brewing. And obviously our mutual friend Simon's gone on to do some fantastic things as well with Apex Labs. I again, thank you for that. And I think what you're highlighting there is that water is one of the most important things ever.
Absolutely. So pretty much Simon and Apex, through our whole competition journey, we were like experimenting so much with minerals, with water, and we were finding those massive differences. And this is where pretty much Apex started, or Simon started like getting his head about, wait a second, what coffee is that? Ooh, what if we add more this, more this, more that? And look what Apex is now. Apex is an amazing product that is killing it around the world. I'm super happy for Simon, and man, like I'm super proud of him and the amazing product he's created.
He's gone on to do wonderful things. One other thing I noticed in your routine, you were using a Time More kettle. Now, it just so happens, Carlos, Time More is a partner in this program. Look at that wall just there.
Amazing
they also
stuff.
they supply world quality kettles,
Absolutely.
world quality hand grinders, world quality electric grinders that you can use backstage if you so wish. That's Time More, timemore.com if you're after some brew gear. Time More at one of your local distributors in whatever respective country. What grinder are you using?
I cannot say that, but yeah, maybe no. Let's stay with the sponsors. I'm using
Plausible
Time More.
deniability.
Time More, yeah.
I like that. Look, we're just about to wrap up.
Cool.
I'm so happy you came onto the podcast. I knew I wanted to have you on when I arrived here. Hey, if you win, do you mind coming back for a quick 10, 15 minute instant reaction? Done? All right, done.
When I
Deal.
win.
What is one more thing you'd like to sign off with the listener? Just what's one thing we haven't spoken about that you'd like to impart on the people listening to this podcast?
No, man, just I think in the way, like, just a message of being a little bit more open to other people's opinions and ideas. And that applies for everything. That applies for coffees. That applies for ways of assessing the coffee without getting into any controversies. But I think
people need to chill out in the coffee industry.
That is
sometimes.
the thing. So
yeah.
It's hard to say that because, of course, this industry brings a lot of passion, and that's the beauty of this, right? That's the beautiful thing of coffee is that everyone is so passionate. I am a highly passionate individual, right? But let's say that it's also that passion that we bring sometimes get us to be very one-sided, or you are from this side or you are from this one. And it would be beautiful to start like pretty much being more open to see the other side points and not try to be like, that's bad just because it's not my side. Just like, hey, I disagree with that, or I do not like that, and that is okay. That happens a lot with Colombian coffees. People are I love these coffees, so I hate those coffees. But like, you know what I mean? Like it can be as simple as that coffee is not for me, and that is perfectly fine. But the way that people talk about some producers or some farms or some things just because of the profiles that they don't enjoy, I find that very, very narrow-minded. And I do think that is the next thing that the industry needs to start working on. Hey, producers need to experiment in order for us to keep advancing as an industry. So let's stop hunting witches.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, you know, the industry has a lot to thank Colombia and producers for doing. So, look, let's leave it there. That's an excellent point to finish up on. Carlos Escobar, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest of all time. I'm just going to call it greatest Brewers routine I've ever seen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man.
Hasta
Means a lot.
luego.
Hasta luego, amigos.